non-Fregean logics. And I'm afraid that if I start to speak about the story, so I never will, I'll never ending talk. And this is what I am afraid for. So, ну сколько? Час?
Ну, мы ориентируемся на час, хорошо? Мало.
Да быстро. Ну ладно, будем быстро. Okay. Non-Fregean games. Conception of non-Fregean games was primarily introduced for inquiring the process of scientific discovery, when abductive inference were employed. But this appeared to be helpful also in considering an issue of contextuality in logics. And this conceptuality in deductive system, now it's we can find in many papers. For example, a paper of Peter Axel in Russian translation. I don't know, Peter Axel, but that's maybe in Hungarian name.
Yes.
If in Hungarian, then it will be Peter Axel. He proposed, for example, an example of contextuality in deductive system, not an abductive system, but deductive system. His general propositional calculus. In his general propositional calculus, we have such an axiom where the C operator means some context, which in essence is a sentence which can which is consists also between which is constructed not only with the help of usual logical connectives, but also with an additional zero place connective star. And C from phi here means a sentence which we can obtain from C by replacing all occurrences of the star by our phi, by our formula. And the sense of this axiom is that identity of two proposition is involves the contextual equivalence. More interesting.
What exactly C stands for?
C from phi, yeah.
Context.
C is, yes, some context which is in essence is a proposition. A proposition. This is a case where I need C. For example, we have formula. For example, where we have such empty place, and we can replace this empty place with the formula C. This is, for example, in such a way. But you see, here in the left side we have only phi of psi, any C. So C plays the role of context. That phi is identity of phi of psi involves the equivalence of two contextual formula in the same context C.
So it's
Say equivalent,
like
but taking the account, here is identity, here is equivalence.
Alright.
It's not the same. So identity decides the equivalence. And this is an example of such a calculus where we can take into account the conception of contextuality. But more interesting in this connection is the systems of so-called non-Fregean logics. Firstly was this non-Fregean logics. Firstly was introduced by Polish logician Roman Sushka in the 70s. It is a long story with Roman Sushka because his conception of non-Fregean logic were in a sense there were some mistakes in this logic, which allows to judge him in the trick that non-Fregean logic is simply the model logic on the mask. Later on, another Polish logician, Ryszard Wojcicki, proposed another. He criticized Roman Sushka and proposed another.
Нет, нет, подожди.
Чуть-чуть сидю, у меня есть это.
Подожди. Ладно, рассказывай.
He criticized Roman Sushka and proposed another version of non-Fregean logic, which was free of those churches in modality. In the system of Ryszard Wojcicki, we have, for example, another this axiom of Peter Etzel. Maybe they have a parallel, but you see here is this identity of two variables, x and y. As this we have, if we here have equality, so here we have an identity.
These variables, are they sentential or nominal?
And now I need to deliver some comments about non-Fregean logic. I'm afraid that I need to do it. Firstly, because nobody here don't know what does it mean non-Fregean. Yeah? No one knows what is the name non-Fregean. Why non-Fregean logics? Yes?
What is Fregean logic?
Yes. The conception of Roman Sushka was firstly as such. He accused Frege in such a trick that in his, you know what Frege did to count the logical meaning of the sentences. If we take that's kind of,
А он сделал там хорошо внутри.
okay. According to Frege, we have, for example, we have such a formula. You have a proposition. So, according to the semiotic triangle, we have his meaning. Так, reference. The reference. We have a reference.
Вот я принесла.
There's a reference. And we have a sense. But what exactly connected with what we can exactly say about case where alpha is a proposition? For example, the snow is white. We can say that a reference of this alpha is some case of situation. It's the same situation, and also we can say that this situation. And its situation also reference in a sense, and Frege proposed that real meaning, a real reference, and the sense of the propositions is exactly the logical meaning. Logical meaning, which we can truth or falsity. Truth or falsity. Truthfulness and false. Truthfulness and false. And we have such, for example, the destroying this triangle, because in any case, when we speak about the meaning of our proposition, for example, the snow is white, you can always answer the question, is it true or not? It means that you know the situation, and everybody knows the situation when he told you that this is true. He knows about the situation on which I can ask him. So it's exactly enough, it is exactly enough to not split, but exactly to destroy this triangle and leave only this logical meaning for propositions only. In this case, Sushko proposal concerning the system of logic where we split this logical meaning exactly to revitalize this triangle. And his proposal concerning the equivalence. He proposed that to extend our logical systems with usual connectives, with an independent connective identity. This connective identity. What is the difference? Because you know, as usual, we always can we call use a definition. Yes, I can use this definition of this kind. And Sushka propose to speak in this case of equivalence and not identity. This is equivalence. This is independence connectives, which connect exactly with notion of the situation. When he tried to formulate such a sematization of this logic, he found that semantics for these logics can be based on the Wittgenstein's Tractatus theory of situation and notion of the Wittgenstein situation. And this came when we consider alpha and beta, alpha equivalent to beta. Yes, then we have such an axiom. If alpha is identical with beta, then it tells that we have alpha is equivalent to beta, but equivalence is not identity. And he built some semantics, some situational semantics for his logics, where this meaning of this connective was as follows: alpha is identity with beta. It means that the situation which is described by alpha is exactly the same situation which is described by beta. And for other usual logical connective, we also can give an interpretation of this connective in the situational terminology, but this connective will have exactly the same meaning. And this will be practically an extension of the usual system of usual logical system of propositional logic, classical propositional logic. The main fallacy of his system. And this he entitled his system as non-Fregean logic because of this additional connective identity, which is not usually figured in the system of usual propositional logics. It's non-Fregean because Frege told us that we can speak only on logical meaning of proposition, and according to Sushka, we can speak about the situation meaning of proposition. That instead of true or false, we can speak about facts. Others proposition fact or no. And so alpha is identity with beta. This means that the situation for alpha is the same as the situation for beta. But his main mistake from the point of view of Richard Luchinsky was that he proposed some some axioms, for example, such that if proposed such mixture of logical and situational connectives. He proposed, for example, such connectives that alpha is connected with beta, yes, and for example, gamma is identical with delta. Then it follows that alpha. Then it follows that alpha and gamma is identical with beta and delta. Richard Luchinsky his point of view was worked in an opposite direction. He told that here we have a mixture. In such an axiom, we have a mixture of logical and situational connectives, and this axiom is not true because situations and algebra of situation and situational ontology is not the same as the logical. And he proposed such a system in which we have only axiom, which such kind of axioms in which we have not any mixture of this connective. In fact, here first proposal was exactly of such an axiom that alpha is identical with beta. This connective we can say co-referential. Alpha is co-referential with beta. They have the same situational reference. Alpha is referential to alpha. Yes, and then alpha if alpha is co-referential with beta, then we have that, for example, that gamma of alpha is co-referential with gamma of with beta. And exactly like in case of beta S. Okay. And finally, the last axiom is that identity, from identity it follows equivalence, but not the other way around, only in one direction. There's a situation are decided. They decide about of the logical mean, and not in both directions. This is to say ontologic is main, ontologic in main theory, not the logical. And so ontology dictates our logical laws. And you see there is any mixture of logical connective with situational connective. This was exactly proposal of Wojcicki. In the sequel, I will follow the line of Richard Wojcicki and will use his version of non-Fregean logic. So you see now what does it mean, non-Fregean? This system with situational semantics, not with only truth and false semantics. So there are now some extension of non-Fregean logic. For example, first extension concerning introducing concerning the splitting of the Wojcicki connective. We can split it with such kind of situational implication. Implication and duplication, or we can read that alpha situation implicated. It means alpha referentially involves B. Alpha referentially involves B. So in such a system, for example, we also have such a kind of axioms. You see, but here we have two kinds of implication: situational implication, and usual implication. Another extension which I will exploit later.
May I just short remark before you are starting concerning Frege? Because actually for Frege, reference, not meaning but reference of proposition is truth value, not sense. But reference.
Yes, of course, but the main point is that for Frege there is, in case of proposition, there is any triangle.
Yes.
This is exactly the point. Because in the case of names, we have a triangle, but in case of proposition, we haven't any triangles. We speak about this.
But he says explicitly that it's reference. We are therefore driving into accepting the truth value of a sentence as constituting its reference.
And also with a sense, because in English meaning, for linguists is the same, there is any difference between meaning is a reference and the sense. The sense is invention of Frege. Frege's invention of sense, exactly. But in case of proposition, he used such a trick that we haven't any triangle, have only one parameter, so to say. And another extension of metaphoric non-Fregean logic. It's connected with his triangles. That we can also, in a sense, we can try to exploit. To split exactly to triangle, not only to have references, but also for some identity or identity in a sense. And there we have, so it will be contextual similarity by sense both proposition involves the essential similarity. So, in a sense, if we have in a sense that B from I prime is in a sense is coreferential as B from I, then it entails that I in a sense is identical with coreferential with A, in a sense. Not only only like here it's coreferentiality. It's not coreferentiality, and the trick is the same. And because that we have the name non-Fregean. Non-Fregean because we for the second time used the trick of Sushko. So, for example, we can of course we can split this connectives, obtaining some kind of contextual situational implication. So in a sense, if it means that if alpha prime conceptually in a sense involves A, then A prime in a sense involves A. In a sense, not in all senses. It's not referential, but in a sense. So we can, the first point is that in such system of such a kind, conceptual dependence determines logical. So maybe the first resume, but we can understand this determination in the Kant's notion of the equation of pure and applied logic. When applied logic, in our case, it's contextual logic as applied logic, and classical logic as a pure logic. Then we have Kant rules that contextual logic considered rules of the application of our reasoning, common sense, our common sense under subjective empirical conditions. It's exactly a common logic in that sense that it investigates the application of this common sense without any differentiality in objects.
Translation of Kant.
Sorry, I didn't prepare the English version of Kant. So, and if we the next point will be that we if we try to understand how this contextuality works in such systems, we can understand it, for example, in the frameworks of the theoretic game semantics. Maybe some will be such a tools for understanding what does it mean, this contextuality. Exactly. New, so to say, new color for this understanding. For this aim, we firstly recall the first notion of the game theoretical semantics in case of classical logics. This is exactly starting postulate that we with any sentence S from first order language S, we can associate with this sentence a semantical game G from Sm, which will be played with S on the sum model M of the language in which S is formulated. That's what exactly means G from S and M. The notion of this game.
One thing I don't quite understand. So your semantic is game theoretic semantic, right?
Yes, it's
but then
basics of
just question terminology. But then you may say this game is model of your framework, right? But what does it mean that this game is played on your model M? What is
on some model.
But model which is not itself a game.
No, yes, model is not a game. There is a connection. Later on I will explain this connection with models and games.
And what kind of model then if it's not a game?
Depends.
I will describe later on. I will describe this. In this case, a standard model for first order logical predicate logic. First order predicate logic. So this is a set with some universe set with some kind of relations on them.
The game doesn't concern the model.
Exactly, I'm just recalling the basics of this game theoretical semantics, because later on we will exactly explain this the role of M. So the second, the game is played by two persons, which we can denote as me, myself, verificator, and nature, falsificator. During the game, myself trying to define truthfulness of some sentence, trying to verify it here. And the task of the nature is to refute it and finding that the sentence is false, falsification of the sentence. In any stage of this game, GSM layers consider sentences and some extension, L and C. Some extension, this extension of the language L, where this domain of M is in the region of individuals of M, which we obtain by adding new individual constant as a name for individuals in this domain for those individuals which previously had not any name. And now, the next stage is exactly the rules of this game. I hope somebody knows the rules of this game. So this is a classical. You see that, for example, the game in case of the disjunction, yes, in model M, it started with from the choice of myself E1 or E2 and the game, and then we have the continue, and then we proceed with the game G from S, I and M. In case of conjunction, we have the case where the nature choosing E1 E2 and the game, and we proceeding in such a game. In case of existential quantifier, then we start from the choice of myself, some individual from our domain of our model, and for example, let his name be, for example, C. Then the game will continue as G from C0 from C. In case of this universal quantifier, we move in the same manner, but the choice is now the choice is now in the privilege of the nature. In the case of negation, we have an exchanging of roles of nature and myself, and finally, in case of atomic formulas, then we have if S is atomic formula or identity, then in case when S is true in M, then myself is a winner, and if S is false in M, then the nature is a winner, not myself. So this is the usual statements of game theoretical semantics. So it's not the point of our interest. But now we have if we try to proceed in this direction, then the first proposal will be mainly, obviously, that we can, in a way, one or another way, to include these rules in our non-Fregean games, if we try to yield the semantics for non-Fregean logics. But here is the main trouble concerning that we in our semantic have not with the truth falsity. We are dealing with factuality and we are dealing with situations. So we need a good notion of situation, which will be good for formulating these rules for our game theoretical semantics for non-Fregean logics. And then we have that notion of semantics, which we will use this notion to Richard Luchinsky, are as follows: that sentences which are better interpreted in terms of situation, we can simply describe as a construction of the type A, phi A, where A small is the name of subject, A as sentence, and phi is an expression which connects first of them. For example, knows that, yes, afraid that, see that. For example, this transformation of the usual sense. For example, Pavel is a pianist. In the case situation of this, which is described by this sentence, is that this, we have two elements, to be pianist and piano. So then, for example, the even in performance is cancelled, can be transformed into situations. We have two elements, firstly cancelling something, and even into performance. So this exactly construction of the situation which we need. Another, more formally and logically, we can use set theoretical representation of situation, which associated with the sentences of the kind are I from A1, so I. So in this case, we have the common form will be such that we have I, comma, A1, comma, A, where all these elements are names in model for these elements of our language.
And R is just...
You see, this is these are exactly names in model for our elements of our language.
And R is a relation?
Yes, a relation. Name. Which are this or this? This is name.
The first.
Name for this relation. This is a name for this relation which we add to our model. You need to add such names to our model, if there are any such name. So you see here we have such R is the name of such R, respectively. If we have not such a name, a respective name, then we can say about the factuality of the situation non-I, and then all elements are the same. There's a negative situation, so to say. And we have not R, A1 and so on, but not R, A1 and so on. That's a negative situation. Of course, we also have, say, negative situations, not only positive or not only fast, but also have, for example, the snow is red. It is, so to say, false situation. Yes, it's not a fact. This is not true, so it's not a fact, not factual. It's a situation, but it's not a fact. And such an elementary situation, and in case of equality, we have such kind of situation, non-equality, such kind. Such elementary situation is take place or is a fact or is defined in model if and only if when we have, you see here is, so to say, this R and this R are different. So this is model name, for this name is true when we have that where this phrase, the expression of language will be satisfied in the model.
What does it mean to have a name for a relation? Name is just you have some coding of all relation.
If you have a model, yes, the model usually, first order model is usually inside the universe, and we have also some names for R0 usually for equality, R1 we have, and functional. So model always had some elements, but there will be a situation where, where for some relations in our language, we have not exactly this relations. So we need to add the names for that as an elements of our universe to extend our universe.
So they are not sets. They are not sets. Right?
About that I will say later on. Well, simply names. We need simply names. We need to add them to our model, to extend our model. In this case, because to formulate, there is a difference. This is expression of our language. This is expression of our semantics model. Situation is expression of our semantics. So we simply, for the simplicity, we use the same name, but only I can stress them, for example, for another type, kind of, so on. And now, if we try to formulate, we will try to formulate now against theoretical semantics for non-Fregean logics. then we again have to take into account the situations that semantics of non-Fregean logic is not truth-false semantics. It's a factual semantic of facts and non-facts. And exactly, this is formalism for this interpretation. You see, this work not follow. For example, we have an interpretation of the atomic sentence. Yes? We say that his interpretation is fact. We say that this is a fact. That this atomic effect, if and only if, when we have in a model, we have exactly such a relation with under the relation on such elements of our model. Well, then we proceed more standardly. Conjunction is a fact if and only if the facts are both A and B. Interpretation goes of both elements. Disjunction will be one of these parts will be fact, and so on. Only this point is interesting for us because it's exactly typically non-Fregean point, because we have that interpretation of identity says us that this identity is a fact of two elements if and only if interpretation of alpha is equal to beta. This is the same, practically the same. It is the same situation. It both for I and B, and we both also point to the same situation. This is exactly not Fregean point of our model. So now we can proceed trying to yield game theoretic semantic for such kind of logics. If we try to count all these elements, I omit all the points and leave only points concerning our non-Fregean points. Exactly these points. It's exactly what is a game theoretical point. Well, the main statements of this game theoretical semantic are the same. We have a game, we have a strategy, we have kind of strategy, and our formula will be effective. We will have a winning strategy for this formula. But this point, exactly new point, non-Fregean point, will be as follows: this game for such kind of formula with identity. It starts from the trying to understand, is such a situation which is in respect to this formula, is the situation a fact in our model? If it's true, then myself is a winner. If not, then the nature is winner. And an atomic situation also. We have for atomic formula, if S is atomic formula of identity, then if S is fact, in our standard semantic was is true, and here we have is a fact. Is a fact, then myself is a winner. If it's non-fact, again, the standard semantic false, and here is non-fact, then the nature is a winner. So the specific non-Fregean points for game theoretical semantics. And now we can couple of words concerning about how we can prove completeness and complete soundness of such kind of system in such a semantics. In usual game theoretical semantics, we can find, for example, Hintikas version. We can describe such a situation if we use the rules for we can use these rules consider the rules for disjunction but first step on this way is to reformulate our model, reformulate our notion of model in a sense of which is it's inverse model. So to use to formulate our rules of constructing our model as inverse rules. For example, the same we can do in case of non-Fregean logics. For example, how it will be work. For example, if for example this interpretation of this atomic formula is a fact, but it's not true that this is a model. It's not true. The model doesn't work. Then please introduce some singular constant such that it will be true. You see here, and then add them to our universe. And so on, in case of another connective, for example, for conjunction. If we have that this is a fact, but it's not true that both any of them is a fact, then please add respective situation to the class of our facts. For disjunction, if the disjunction is true, but not true that one of them is not fact, so if this is a fact, but one of them is not fact, then please choose one of from the situation and add them to the class of facts. And so on, so on. For example, especially non-Fregean point, if identity, interpretation of identity is a fact, so to say identity is a fact, interpretation of identity is a fact, but it's not true that this interpretation, any of them are the same. Then please postulate the satisfaction of such a kind of condition, of such a condition. You see now these inverse rules are, so to say, categorical imperative rules. Not take an actually existing model, but please build it. But build it according to your formulas. And then the next step will be.
Wait, I just sorry. Can you go back? What does it mean? This is a fact. That means that it's true in your model.
No, that means that my model is fact. I have a notion of true in my model. Only facts. This is mean that if it's a fact, spectrum means that we have such relation in my model. If we have such kind of relation, I can say, oh, that it is a fact. But there can be such a situation that I'm speaking that it is a fact, but in another model I cannot find such a relation, real. I can find such a relation. Then what can I do? I can simply introduce all that I need to obtain such a construction in my model. If I will have such a kind of construction in my model, then I will say that this really is a fact, and this is because it's really I have really such a relation in my model. It can be the situations you can say this is a fact, but you cannot find really such a relation in my model. What can I do? I can simply add to my model such kind of relation. This is about exactly extension of my model.
Что ты говоришь, когда неверно, что значит неверно? В каком смысле неверно?
Ну, видно, что нету, не имеется.
В твоей модели.
Ну да, ты смотри, видишь, здесь у меня не жирными буквами, а здесь жирными. Это же выражение языка. Это выражение языка, это выражение модели.
Вот, я вот это.
This is bold, as the usual.
But D is expression.
D is the interpretation.
Is interpretation.
Yes, interpretation of language. I said that this interpretation is a fact, but I cannot prove because I cannot find such a construction in my model, which will be exactly this interpretation. What can I do in this situation? I just need to modify my model. And I'm trying to modify it. This will be good for all those forms of which I will say that the interpretation is a fact. That they are speaking about facts, but I couldn't find these facts. So please add these facts to my model.
But you say, if this is a fact, how do you know this? So maybe later.
I say that interpretation of this expression is a fact.
Okay.
So this expression speaks on a fact, but I cannot find such a fact. fact is not the expression of my language. My expression speaking about facts. I said that, yes, of course, my expression speaking on facts. And you ask me, and where is this fact? And I can't find. Then I simply add to my model this fact, so to say. It's a trick. It's a trick of my fact.
So D is part of your language?
D is a function of interpretation. That means that.
Okay. So you interpret all relation.
Yes, if I have D from
but you cannot interpret.
D from M.
Okay, thanks. I see that.
But I cannot find exactly this element.
So
I cannot find this element. What can I do in this situation? So I need to simply modify my model. This is the sense of this inverse rule. Yes, modify your model. In case of Nefregen, if we have not such a condition, so please modify your model such as this condition with you can find such a satisfaction of this condition. This is an inverse rule for considering this model. This is exactly comments on your question about this model, where I can find. So the first notion was actual model, and here we have such a, so to say, like in industrialistic, constructive, not actual but potential model. And then the potential model, starting from potential model, we are trying to transform it into actual. And then when we find it, then if we make them, then we can speak about this question concerning this soundness and incompleteness of our logics. Because in this sense, this notion, this rules 13, it's exactly the rules. 13. Oh, sorry. I omit numbers of rules. Number 13 is a rule concerning disjunction. So if we have disjunctions, trying to our rules for disjunctions, it give us two possibilities to construct in our models, because we choosing one of elements. One, for example, you can find this element and to add it to his model. But you can choose another element and add it to this, trying to add this for your model. So you have two models. So you have such kind of form. If both of them leads to leads that our another rule will be not true, we can obtain a contradictory. Our logic will become contradictory. Our construction becomes contradictory. In this case, we can say that in a sense, it's exactly postulating of our soundness of our logic. I have to say that this kind of reason is exactly as in the classical case. By instead of truth and false, I'm speaking about situation, facts, and models which is obtaining from usual models by adding names for our relations to obtain situation. Because our situations are tuples, in fact. And so on we can, the other way around, if our A will be contradictory, then the situation will be obtained after the finite number of our steps of our construction, under the condition of choose the respective order of the applying rules, those rules, previous rules. And so this result, following Hintikal, we can find the completeness theorem. And so on. Exactly this mechanism works like a case of classical logic, like Hintikal do it, but exactly when we substitute our notion of truth and false and models with models on facts, situational models, we obtain exactly the application of our rules. what couple of words concerning about non-Fregean logic. What about the case of non-Fregean logic? We have only not coreferentiality of two expressions, but coreferentiality in a sense. In this case, we need to modify our notion of universal situations. The structure of this universe will be more complex because we have to add the family of some relation, equivalence relation, which will be described on the universal situation. This family must satisfy the following three conditions. First, if the two situations are equal, then it follows that we can always find at least one relation which connected those situations. So if two situations are the same, we have we can find exactly the respective at least one relation which is connected to the situation. Every relation from this family is defined just on facts or not non-facts, but there are any mixed cases. So they connected only facts or only non-facts. Any case, there is any mixed cases. For example, the relation is connection between fact and non-fact. Not, it's forbidden. And the third condition, this family is not total. There's no one relation connects all the situation. It's only partial relation, not total.
А это не вытекает из второго?
Ну, в каком-то отношении не обязательно. Во втором, да, оно вытекает, да, все автоматически, но здесь имеется в виду частичность более явном виде. Там это еще можно и пустить, конечно, для знающих людей, но лучше not to say it plainly. That is the truth. So, our universal became more complex. And then, in this game theoretical semantic for such kind of logic, where we have more connectives, we have coreferentiality, and we have coreferentiality in a sense. Then we have the following rules for such semantics, for game theoretical semantics. For example, for coreferentiality, we have such a rule. The rule is factually the same, but in case of this connective, our games will start from the checking. Are there at least one relation for this family? For which situation, for such a situation, yes, this is a relation, for such a relation for concrete is a fact in M. If the answer is positive, then we have a winner. Myself is a winner. If not, so if we have one from this family relation, not all, at least one, then we can say that this will be, so to say, we are winner in this game. We can reformulate these rules in such a way. For example, first rule is that here games started from the checking are coreferential S1 and S2 coreferential in our model. If the answer is positive, then myself is a winner. And for this collective, we are starting from the checking if S1 and S2 are similar in a sense. These are connected. The situation connected with some similarity relation. If we can find such a relation, we can say they are similar, and then answer is positive, and then myself is a winner. The third reformulation. We can also speak in the language of contextuality. And we can say that this is true, this S1 is true, that the game start with start from the checking are S1 all all S1 and S2 are coinciding in our model. If yes, then myself is a winner. For this connective, we have that we start from the checking other at least one common context, common text for S1 and S2 in our model. If yes, then myself is a winner. We can also formulate all these rules for the case when our connectives are not identity, but situational implication and involvement. The exact name is not implication, involvement, or the connective for involvement. In this case, I can say the S1 situationally involve S2, co-referentially involve S2. If we are starting to from the checking other situation in our model. In case of the positive answer, myself is the winner. The second rule for the situation involvement in a sense, not involvement situation involvement, but I can say that situation involvement in a sense, in the case if we have such one relation, situation involved, we have all relations, they are connected with all relations. In one relation, we check in the other at least one antisymmetrical relation for which the situation is antisymmetrical because we have not identity, but we have implication. It is directed connective. Okay, we can reformulate. We can reformulate this in another term such that it is true if we're trying to check whether a referential S1 involves S2. If the answer is positive, then myself is a winner. And the second rule, if we starting from the checking whether S1 in a sense involves S2 in M. In case positive answer, then myself is a winner. And the third reformulation we can say in terms of contextuality. We start from the checking whether all contexts of C1 involve context of C2 of S2. If the answer is positive, then myself is a winner, and so in case of the essential situation, conferentiality and sense, then we try to check whether some context, at least one context of for S1, context for S2 in M. So the answer is positive, then myself is a winner, and the nature, fortunately, nature is not a winner.
And I read that potentially the game is infinite, right? So there is no...
Like a classical case. There is any difference. We simply change our terminology from the truth and falsity of the facts, and model are extended, and all the circumstances are the same. And finally, I can say about interrogative games. Firstly, I have here. So we can conclude that the set game theoretical semantic for some logical calculus in principle give us a possibility to consider in some context of a proposition in the framework of the apparatus, but Also, there is another possibility to extend such non-Fregean ways of accounting of context, and in the case of the interpretation of interrogative and rogative abductive reasoning. As the Hindika shown, interrogative interpretation of abductive reasoning are tightly connected with the conception of interrogative games, which structure have more complex buildings and games which are applying in usual set theoretical semantic of logic, game theoretical semantic of the usual logical system. This is exactly the I'm trying to recall you some main postulates of interrogative games. You see, main points are what are the players in this game. We have two players. One of them we call the investigator as a nature, counting how we count works in our games. The games works in respect for two semantic tables in bed tables, central bed tables. Starting position. In both tables, to the left column, we write theoretical presupposition key theory. One from table containing C in right column, and the second, in this case, contains non-C. Goal of games. Investigators trying to close one of those two tables, and the nature try and resisting to his attempts to do it. Other words, investigator trying to answer the question on principle or starting question whether C or it's not true that C moves. What moves? On any stage, investigator make a choice between two kinds of moves: deductive and interrogative. Every move will connect with a stage when we consider one of subtable, and we adding a new formula to the subtable. Deductive moves. Deductive moves. If we working with we are working in respect to the usual rules of the building of the table. We think that they do not the rules of the subformula structure will be distorted, such as the cut rule, more respondents, and so on. Interrogative games. Here, investigator asks nature. The answer, nature's answer, we write to the left column of our subtable. There cannot be any empty maps. And which kinds of questions? Types of the questions, there are two types of the questions. Whether questions or which questions. Whether questions and the question of such a type. Is it true that S1, S2 and so on, or Sk? The answer is one of these Sy. Which questions? Which questions? This is the question of such a kind. Which individual, say X, is such that we have S of X. And last notion, presupposition. Before the investigator can ask questions, his presuppositions have to occur in the left column of the considering subtable. Presupposition of whether question is disjunction of those questions and presupposition of which questions there is such a sentences. Exists such x as s of x. There exists such x, there is the case as s of x. This is introduction. Introduction, this is not my hintikas terminology. What is interesting for us? For us, it's interesting we can adapt our notion of non-Fregean games and non-Fregean logics for this kind of games. Again, the trick is simply we again trying to speak not on the truth and false, but on the situation, the models, we're speaking of facts, not the truth of facts and non-facts. Non-facts is a negative situation. For example, we can modify the question for our connective involvement in situational involvement in a sense, in such a way. Whether is it true that T in some sense involves C1 or T in some sense involves S2 and so on, or T in a sense involves SK. You see this reformulation. The answer will be naturally one from this SI. But the difference is that in usual weather question we have with usual inference, and in our case we will have a contextual inference. An inference on the frameworks of our non-Fregean logic. So an inference in the situational terms. For example, in case of this connective, yes, with identity in a sense, contextual weather question will be like that. Is it true that T in a sense is similar to S1, or T in a sense is similar to S2, and so on, so on, so on, or T in a sense is similar to SK? Now again, this whole machinery will work. In case of another kind of question, we can also adopt our apparatus of non-Fregean reasoning, speaking in contextuality or speaking of situation of facts and so on, and exploring exploiting the respective models and speaking of facts. For example, in case of which question, yes, in this case, on the situation involved in a sense, we obtain such a version. Which individual, say P, is such that there is some x as x, in a sense, involves S from B. For the co-referential involvement, which question will be as such. Which individual, say B, is such that there is such x, that we have S of x, referentially involves S from B. It's not as easy to consider situation when in the process of invention, a real investigator need to use more small class of alternatives before to ask Oracle the final question. Then, for example, we can introduce the following with the question. Is it true that S1 in a sense is similar to S2, or S2 in a sense is similar to S3, and so on, or SK minus 1? in a sense is similar to SK. And in the same manner we can consider following contextual which question. Which individual, say B, is such that there is such X for the X in this expression in a sense involves such an expression as from B. You see, the sexual expression involves such an factual expression, and another individual, say C, is such that this existential expression, in a sense, it involves C, and B, in a sense, is co-referential to C. This is also the patterns of such interpretation of interrogative